the more that you compete at anything, the better you get at competing. So my whole life, that is one thing that I've always done, either in like a formal capacity or even just with my brothers. We always are competing. So I understand all the emotions. I understand all the mental games. I understand everything that's happening. And you're supposed to be nervous. You're supposed to have those feelings. You're supposed to have that adrenaline. It helps you perform appropriately. But if you've been there before and you understand how to deal with those emotions, that's how you perform optimally. That's how you have that mindset like, oh yeah, here's those butterflies. Like you view it as an awesome challenge rather than like a threat, right? Because those things come in as the exact same thing, a threat and a challenge. And it's just how you frame it. So as you're waiting, you're going through all the stuff, you're just like, yeah, 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 this is awesome. This is awesome. And you're just getting ready because you know that as soon as they fire the gun or shoot the flames or do whatever they do for that competition, boom, you perform. You get to be in the zen mode then because you've done everything leading up to that point, all the mental preparation, all the physical preparation, all the reps, everything that you can do, so that when it's go time, you can just perform and enjoy it.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Roe Show. This week we have Derik Scott, aka The Law. That's because Derik is in fact a lawyer for one thing. He also is a professional MMA fighter and is known to uphold the law in the cage. Coming from a background in traditional gymnastics, he also knows the laws of gravity better than most. He has a unique perspective and sees acrobatics as more of a training tool for all physical movements in sports, which has allowed him to diversify his career. He was recently one of the stars of the Titan Games on NBC hosted by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and was a runner-up in the very first season. We discuss his experiences filming the show for several months, and he gives us his perspective of strength and conditioning and acrobatics, and we compare insights to human nature for fun at the end. So for all of you looking to learn a few of the laws governing developing a successful career in acrobatics, this episode's for you. Okay guys, let's go. Tell us how you got on the show, the Titan show. How did you get it? What was the whole deal there? Give us an insider perspective.
Yeah, so the cool thing for me is that I was fortunate enough to do Guinness World Records back in 2013. My youngest brother Zeke and I set a Guinness World Records. So once you do Guinness World Records or anything like that, you are on the radar of casting producers. After we did Guinness World Records, we did Guinness World Records again in China. We did WWE Tough Enough. We did what's that show with Sylvester Stallone? Ultimate Beastmaster. So I was on the radar of a lot of these casting producers, and they called me and they said, hey, you seem like the perfect type of person to participate in this competition challenge. You're an athlete, you're a mixed martial artist, you do a lot of things, but we also want people who are regular, everyday individuals giving back and being of service to others. So we like that you're an attorney, and it's a show with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And I was like, yo, cut it out. I'm in. Whatever you guys need. So then, you have to shoot all these videos, you have to do all these interviews, and you just have to turn yourself up to 11. So however you normally are, just amplify that. Like you just took 15 caffeine pills, and that's what they want to see. They want to see you authentically, but turned all the way up, because the more energy that you have, the more that you can bring it, the more exciting you are, the more entertaining you are. So it was off to the races after that. And then it was a grueling process as far as like they had tens of thousands of people apply. And then we had to they whittled it down to 200 people. 200 people went to a combine. We went to this combine out in California. And this combine was everything from a 40-yard dash, max vertical jump. We had to run an obstacle course. We had to do a max effort deadlift. Then we had to do a VO2 max. I mean, you name it. And it looked like the CrossFit Games. So there was insane athletes everywhere. And then from that 200, they whittled down to 64. And thankfully I made it and performed insanely well.
And when did you know that you had made it? Did they tell you right then and there at the end of the day, or you had to wait?
Everything with television that I have ever done has this weird lag time where you know that you're being considered, and then there can be anywhere from weeks to months before you're given any type of confirmation. So what happened was I sent all that stuff out, and then I almost had forgotten that it was there. And then eventually a casting producer called me up, a guy named Peter. He actually does American Ninja Warrior, cast for that as well. And he's like, you made it. And I was like, oh my God, I'm over the moon. And I was so pumped. You're going to the combine, you're going to California, and then you're so excited, but then you have to compete again, because there's always this like, okay, oh great, but it's a competition, so you have to compete again. But with everything that I've done, even when I'm not necessarily competing, when I'm working for the shows, you are always, always, always competing in some and somebody that's gonna put this show on or is always you're always competing against someone, no matter what it is. Even if you're the perfect fit for something, they're gonna have you compete against something until you're Dwayne the Rock Johnson, and then they come find you.
That's funny. Okay, so you finally get picked, top 64, you said, I think. And then what's the plan? A couple months go by, you finally get your call back, and then what's the story from there?
Yeah, man. What's funny is they originally asked me to be an alternate, and I was so pissed. I was pissed. I was like, I told them, I was like, you don't want me to be an alternate because you will regret it. But if you put me on the show, you'll be happy that you put me on the show because I will perform for you guys. So I don't know what happened then, because I was originally supposed to be an alternate, but they came back, and same guy, Peter, he calls me. He's like, you're on. You're going to be a contestant. And from that point, they just tell you to train and be ready. And they give you a date that you're going to come out, but you don't know what's going to go on at all. But when you get there, it's not right away. You don't get to compete. You do hair, makeup, interviews. They do all sorts of this background B-roll footage. You shoot so much footage, and of all the footage and everything that you do, less than 1% actually shows up anywhere in any capacity. So you're doing all of that stuff, all the hair and makeup, all the wardrobe, all the interviews, all the getting ready to actually do something where your nerves are there and you're ready to go and you're ready to compete. But it's like at a gymnastics meet when they walk everybody out and they do all the stuff, and you have all of this pomp and procedure before you actually get to do anything.
Okay. And so do you get nervous then? The more that they do the B-roll stuff and the more of the theatrics, we'll call it, was your blood pressure just rising higher and higher the whole time?
Yeah, for me, I'm so blessed, and you get this too because you competed when you were young. The more that you compete at anything, the better you get at competing. So my whole life, that is one thing that I've always done, either in like a formal capacity or even just with my brothers. We always are competing. So I understand all the emotions. I understand all the mental games. I understand everything that's happening. And you're supposed to be nervous. You're supposed to have those feelings. You're supposed to have that adrenaline. It helps you perform appropriately. But if you've been there before and you understand how to deal with those emotions, that's how you perform optimally. That's how you have that mindset like, oh yeah, here's those butterflies. Like you view it as an awesome challenge rather than like a threat, right? Because those things come in as the exact same thing, a threat and a challenge. And it's just how you frame it. So as you're waiting, you're going through all the stuff, you're just like, yeah, this is awesome. This is awesome. And you're just getting ready because you know that as soon as they fire the gun or shoot the flames or do whatever they do for that competition, boom, you perform. You get to be in the Zen mode then because you've done everything leading up to that point, all the mental preparation, all the physical preparation, all the reps, everything that you can do, so that when it's go time, you can just perform and enjoy it.
That's awesome. We've heard that before from lots of different high professional athletes who, they say it's all really about the training. If your training is poo-poo, then at the end of the day, no matter what, you're going to get there. You're going to get nervous because the back of your brain knows you're not really ready. And that's when it all goes down. So make sure you train well,
Yeah, not only train well, but do all the visualization techniques. So the smell, the sights, the sensations of the arena, you've already been there mentally. So it's like, all right, I've already done this a million times. Like, shoot the cannon, let's go, I'm ready. I've been here. I've done this. I've taken the reps.
Yeah, you got to really feel that. I agree 100%. Okay, so what was your first challenge? What did you do, and how did you do it?
Yeah, I don't know what my NDA calls for, so I'm gonna try to be a little, not say anything that I'm not supposed to say, but I was blessed to compete first every single competition, every single night we were there, which was fantastic for me. So the first one that we go for is this event called Cyclone, and you have a literal wrecking ball that's like 35 feet in the air. It's attached to a rope, and you have to swing the wrecking ball around and knock down these huge pillars. And the guy that I'm competing against is named the the push-up king or the push-up prince. He had been on Ellen. He had been on all these TV shows for basically doing push-ups, being this big, awesome dude. And that's who I had to go against. His name's Kwame. Really cool guy. But what's funny is that when we were kids in the gym, we would do that. We would climb up a rope, a gymnastics rope, and we would swing each other around. So like literally spinning those ropes around, I was like, I've already done this. There's video of this. When I win, I literally just hit the like lion roar, like I'm screaming in the arena. There's flames in the background. I did a backflip and then I just hit this roar, like, because I was so happy to have finally like won an event and like gotten that out of the way. You get the first one out of the way and you're ready to go. Yeah, because then now you're like, okay, I do deserve to be here. It's not a joke. And all right, next guy's up. Let's go. It's that validation. It's that reward that you've been working for. Absolutely. It feels so good. And it's fleeting though. It's so fleeting. So you have like, that scream, that yell, that arena when they erupt and you're there, you're hugging the rock. It's such a fleeting moment. So you definitely want to take that note and soak it in. I remember, man. I'm actually getting tingly. You're reminding me of Nitro Circus with the same sort of thing. And my act always finished with a quint front at the end. And every time I did, I was like, yes, I'm done. You know, I didn't like competing. I didn't like doing shows. I just knew it was a great opportunity, but I'm always a nervous competitor, even though I've done it forever. I could perform when I need to, but I didn't like it. I didn't get that high off of it. But when I landed it, and I knew I was done, and I knew what was going to happen is they have beers out back all the time. So when I'm on my set, I know I'm running to grab a beer, and I get to sit on the side trampoline watching the rest of the show in the middle of the stadium, drinking beers with the guys, you know. And so that's what then gives me that rush, like what you're saying with the the line and everything. That you like, oh, thank God, I did it. That validation, like you said. So that's funny. I got tingly just when you told me that story. That's pretty funny. So yeah. Do you know what's funny is the most anxious part of anything is the actually training. You love so much, and then after you've won, you love it so much. But the action, you have such a huge amount of cortisol and adrenaline, and just all your nerves are just going nuts. That that part is not necessarily. It can be enjoyable. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of nerves. Yeah, no, it's definitely something. And if I had already practiced longer with them, we had basically a month of just kind of playing around, talking to the guys a little bit. We did not rehearse at all. So it was basically, we're going into the stadium cold in front of like 20,000 people. And I was like, oh, okay, great. But after the first few, then it was like, okay, we got this. We have a rhythm and everything. So yeah. Okay. So how long were you there doing the show for? Were you there the whole time, or did you fly back and then come back another month? Like how was this? So this is the crazy part. I was actually, the company that I was working for was in California at the time, in Santa Monica, but we were shooting well outside of Santa Monica. So I was working full time, so doing some remote work, and then shooting overnight. The whole time I was out in California, but I was basically working full time. I wasn't sleeping at all. Like the whole time I lost so much weight doing the show because you can't eat consistently. You don't get to train. Your sleep schedule is all jacked up. You shoot overnight. So it took me a while to recover after the show. And it was probably 2 months that we were out there from like all the time. So after the combine, we got to come back, right? So we did the combine, came back, and then there was a downtime. But then once you're on the show, you're there. You're shooting almost every single day. Whether you're doing interviews or whatever, they're very efficient, right? Because they have to pay for the studio time and the lot time and everything. So they're super efficient. So you're doing something almost every single day. And when it comes to television, they need it to look good. So they can't control outside arenas. So they have to wait for the sun to go down, and they need darkness so that they can control the lighting. So you shoot overnight. And it's like you may get to the arena, you may get to hair and makeup at like 3 or 4, but they won't finish shooting until like 6 a.m., 7 a.m. the next morning. And you're dead. And then you got to get geeked up the next day to go again. Did it go back to back? Like every day was a new challenge? Oh. Yeah. Especially like in the beginning, there's 64 people, so they whittle it down, right? But how they shoot it isn't how it gets shown on TV and everything. But as you start to whittle down, you're competing. You get to do you don't get to chill. You have to shoot all this B-roll. You have to do more interviews. You have to go talk to big NBC. You have to go talk to the social media crew. And then you finally get to go home. You finally get to sleep. Your sleep's jacked up. Then you got to go the next day. You're competing again.
Jesus. Okay. Well, you're a monster. I would have been okay. I'll do one competition, then I'm gonna go have a nap, and so that's kind of funny. But
I would sleep. I would sleep on the couches in the dressing room. I was like, I had a face mask and I had a hood and I had headphones. I'd put them in. They would wake me. They woke one of the events. They woke me up. I ran out and I did the thing. It was the award ceremony when I got presented as a Titan. They give you this huge ass medal, this unbelievable medal. It says Titan on it. It's amazing. When they presented those to the Titans, I was sleeping. They woke me up. I sprint into the arena. I barely get there in time. They say go. And then I'm like, oh my God, like I got sleep in my eyes and everything. It was nuts. I had to do a wardrobe change in between.
Oh man, that's crazy. We've done a couple shows and it's always like that, running around, go. But ours weren't really competition. They're more just performances. Yeah. So it was definitely, it was all that crammed into basically 3 days. And that was it. It was just a flashbang, go, and then you're done, which definitely is easier than consistently. But no, that's really cool. So tell us about the last round. You absolutely dominated this guy, took him to the hospital and everything. What happened?
Yeah, so this event that you're talking about is called Lunar Impact. And in essence, it is an uneven ladder that goes 3 stories into the air, and then it's like a half moon shape. And it gets really thin at the back and then widens as you go towards basically a pendulum that goes back and forth. And in that, I knew the guy's name is Cole. He's an amazing competitor. He's been on American Ninja Warrior. He's a professional wakeboarder. He runs this huge ranch. He takes care of these big, enormous, like black Clydesdale-looking horses. They're nuts. Really, really nice guy. His wife was super nice. Amazing athlete. So he and I both, boom, we're up the ladders. Like ladder was part of school, but we were sprinting towards the door. And before the competition, we had not been able to touch the door at all. So I thought the door was light. So I hit that thing full speed, dead on, dead sprint, and I caught a little bit of shoulder and bounced my face off of this 300-pound door. It was heavy as hell. And I was like, okay. So now you got to reconvene, recollect your thoughts, and then you're just pressing. And what's crazy is that when they show it, when they get on TV or you see the highlight or you see how it goes out there, it's like maybe 3 to 4 minutes is how they edited it. But in reality, we were up there for a half hour, and probably 29 minutes of that half hour is me going backwards. Because when I hit the door, I lost my footing, and it was it's outside, and they're working on the set all day. So there's dust and actual outside stuff, right? It's California. There's probably some smoke, who knows? But I couldn't get my footing. So I would catch my footing, slide, catch my footing, slide. So I was just going backwards. And I was like, I just need to find my footing so that I can push forwards. And I couldn't. The whole time, I would stop him, I would push a little bit, and then go back. Stop him, push a little bit, go back. 29 minutes of that, and then I'm 1 inch away from the edge. And I'm like, what the heck do I have to do to be able to push here? Because I've done really heavy prowler pushes. I've done that type of stuff in training. So I knew that I could do it. I just couldn't kind of find the edge. I couldn't find the positioning. I couldn't find whatever it was. 1 inch away from the edge, and then I go through all the stages of grief. In my head, I grieved, right? I did all the grieving, the loss, the denial, the anger, the okay, it's gonna be fine, right? I did that inside my head because I'm 1 inch away, and I'm like, damn, okay, it's gonna be fine. And then booming from the back of my brain, I can hear my brother just he said this in one of my mixed martial arts fight in the last round when I was absolutely having a fantastic fight. He told me, he's like, you can rest tomorrow. He literally yelled it in his Sean voice, which is very iconic. And that literally exploded in my brain. And then you see, literally from that point onwards, I just walked the whole thing all the way back and pushed him off. And come to find out later when it aired, Cole and I were texting back and forth. He told me that he had a rupture of the front part of his stomach, his gallbladder, his kidney, all of this stuff shut down. from all the excitement, all the adrenaline, how physically difficult it was. And then I can vividly remember this too. They had us on like stunt harnesses, right? So on a stunt harness, you can literally jump off of a building and you like float down. Well, I was gonna do a double back off of this thing after I won. And when I went to like jump and stand up, my legs didn't work. Like I couldn't jump. It was like, no. So I like floated down, and then I was gonna do a backflip because that's how I celebrate. I right. When I got to the bottom, I couldn't stand up. I was at the bottom. I had done this event for so long that I literally just like laid down on my back. And they didn't show this, but both Cole and I are lying on our backs for probably 15 minutes. The Rock came over and like picked Cole up and was like consoling him. And then he's like came over and told me good job. And yeah, it was crazy. My girlfriend who was there at the time picked me up and like carried me. It was I was like, I can't walk. You got to carry me. Like, I'm done. I'm physically spent. Like, that's it. That's all I had.
You should got The Rock to carry you.
Yeah, he probably. Yeah,
he probably. Nice guy. Did you get to talk to him much?
Yeah, you know what? I was blessed in that because I got to go first every night, especially the first competition. He had to do intros with us. So, you know, he does a little intro and then we walk down to the arena, but we kept messing it up. So we're walking down. They didn't like how it looked, whatever. So in between those takes, they have to reset all the sound, all the lighting, all the grip guys. And, you know, you're just sitting there talking smack with The Rock. And for me, that's like living the dream. I love smack talking, and I definitely love smack talking with the Brahma Bull. So it was a great time. And he's just as genuine as he seems on all of his everything. He every interaction you have with that guy is authentic. And I think that's why he is where he is, because he understands who he is as a person. He's all about that, you know, blood, sweat, and respect. And those things are very, very obvious when you're standing right next to him too.
That's cool. We've met some not so nice people that seem nice, and then you meet them and they're definitely not. And I won't obviously mention the names of the shows or anything, but that's nice. You know, it's nice to hear that someone that obviously is well known, it isn't just fake. You know, and I think you have to be more authentic these days with social media, where before you could be fake and it kind of caught attention. But now the kids are looking deeper and they're looking for a little bit more. So I think that's good that when people meet you, they can say, oh, that looks kind of like what I thought I should get, rather than something completely different.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's not to say, you know, I've met a lot of people in the TV and Hollywood industry, or however you want to call it. And, you know, not everybody's a great person. And, but when it takes the good people or the bad people to make you appreciate the good ones. So.
That's true. That's definitely true. And that's very interesting. You had spoken earlier a little bit about your MMA and your martial arts. Can you give us a little bit of a background on how you got into fighting?
Yeah. You know, we've always done gymnastics, me and my brothers, our whole lives. So when you're like 4 or 5 years old and you can do a backflip, people think you're a ninja, right? So we always watched the Ninja Turtles. We liked fighting. We did karate too. So I think our identity, like who we are as people, we would always identify with ninjas, with warriors, with people who were, you know, the protagonists that were smart, but also could fight and could be warriors and well-rounded individuals. So I was actually, I went off to law school, and my brother Sean was fighting, right? He fell into fighting. And then once he fell into fighting, he was winning fight after fight after fight after fight after fight. And I was in law school looking at him like, oh my God, like that's my brother. Like if he can do it, I can do it. That's our whole lives, right? If you do a thing, I'm doing a thing. So, and that's how we've always been. So I knew that if he was doing so well, I went and I trained out of a gym called Fortis MMA with a guy named Saif Saad. And he is the most amazing mixed martial arts coach. His team is literally ranked #1 in the UFC and everything. And I was just blessed in that he was really close to where I lived, and that's where I wound up going. And then it was off to the races from there. Once I got the opportunity to compete, it was like, oh yeah, like I can compete. And, you know, because I had trained gymnastics and trampoline and tumbling my whole life, you know, my father still bounces. He'll go do a double back on a trampoline right now, no problem, right? And he still coaches kids. That's part of who we are. And what I didn't realize in doing a lot of interviews, my family was very the exception in that doing gymnastics, was always expected, right? All three of my brothers can do a standing back tuck, no problem, right? My
Right.
family can do gymnastics, and gymnastics carries over into so many different things, right? If you can do gymnastics, you're likely very physically fit. So I do a lot of health and wellness stuff, right? If you can do gymnastics, you can compete at a high level. You understand nutrition, you understand competition. You have all of these traits that you've developed. All those skills that I had, boom, yes, let's apply these. Like, but in such a visceral fashion, because it's the epitome of competing. You have an opponent, they lock the cage, and then you're competing, right? You're literally competing. There's very, very few rules. Figure it out. And if you've competed, and if you're an athlete, and if you understand that, it can be a very rewarding experience.
So you think that it's the gymnastics training that really gives you an edge, because you do quite well as well when you fight, not just Sean. So do you think that that gymnastics background that's a little bit unbalanced in some ways compared to what the other MMA fighters would use, you have a more holistic approach because you're doing stuff with your body that they would never really imagine? Do you think that really separates you?
Gymnastics is the foundation for every single thing, athletic thing I have ever done, hands down, period. And you know, I was an All-American diver in university. I played basketball, baseball, football. I wrestled. I'm currently undefeated professionally as a mixed martial artist. If the kinesthetic awareness, the ability to compete hard, the ability to, you know, like when you do a really, really difficult trick for the first time, there's this big mental thing that you go through. The ability to do that and overcome that fear and then do the skill translates to everything. It's the exact same feeling the first time you have to step into a cage and then they lock you in, right? You have to check that fear and be courageous and recognize that that fear is supposed to be there because you're doing a worthwhile thing. And then you get into the cage, or you throw the skill, or you throw the quint front, right? That there's a fear component of it, but you have to be able to digest that fear and internalize it and then use it.
Yeah, I would say that I think most people improve something because they have fear. You know, people say, oh, well, I don't know what they say, but I've heard people say things like, you know, it's, oh, they got to love it for them to want to do it. But the other side says, nah, I don't know, man. I think there's a lot of fear that really comes down at the core that like for me, I left Team Canada and all that sort of stuff and went on my own simply because I was scared of not having an opportunity that I really wanted. It wasn't that I thought it was better. I had no idea what to expect. I'm hitting the road waiting to see what happens. But it was that fear of staying where I was and never getting to really explore what the world's really about that really drove me. And it's not hope or motivation. It's more fear and desperation, and that then they play off each other in a sense.
Yeah, using those mental skills and understanding what motivates you and why it motivates you. We use an exercise in our nutrition coaching program all the time, but we use it in so many different facets. We ask why, and then you delve down 5 layers deep into why. And then once you've gone down 5 layers, you usually have a pretty deep motive for why you're doing what you're doing. And then you can go back to that all the time, right? Find your why. And once you've kind of found that, it helps you figure out your path, figure out your next action step. And, you know, you don't have to know action step number 15. For you, it was, I'm going to leave Team Canada. I'm going to go out on my own. That's step number 1. From that point, I'm going to look for the next step. And then exactly.
Yeah. And I think that's what I think. People tell kids things like, you're supposed to have your life all planned out and everything's going to go according by the books, and these theories that were made from some guy back in the 1400s that everyone's still using, and that's what's going to make your life better. You just got to pick the right theory and apply it to your life. But in reality, you just got to go there and live life and, you know, apply a mentality to that life that allows you to build, rather than thinking you're just going to transpose a theory onto, you know, your own specific experiences, which it just doesn't work that way. There's no theory in the world that fits everybody, you know. So you got to really just get out there and get your hands dirty and try some stuff. Don't be dumb. Don't run away from home, you know, but use the resources you have around you. I would say figure out what your why is, but then figure out what resources you have to start. Because if you can capitalize on what you got, that's going to be your starting point. If you have all nutrition stuff around you, and one of your parents owns a gym, that's your starting point, right? If your parents are well known and have an energy drink company, maybe your start would be making content for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then from there, you can branch out after. You got to figure out what resources, you got to play to your strengths that you're given, whether it's genetic or resource-based, considering, you know, where your parents live and what your social status is at that time. But if you reach out far enough, you'll find someone that can help you if you're really looking for it.
Yeah, dude, that's the thing. So two things I would say: don't be afraid to fail. If anything, seek it out, right? So say you're marketing for your parents, energy drink company didn't go so hot. You're going to learn things that if you're passionate and you actually have, the desire to do something, reach out to who is ever at the very top. And if you can't reach the person at the very top, start climbing down. But if you reach out to people, they will definitely help you. And people are so accessible nowadays. It's so unbelievable. You and I are sitting here talking right now. You're Greg Rowe, right? You're an amazing athlete. You're a figure. And I'm blessed in that I get to talk to a lot of people who seem unreachable in many different ways, but it's always because I always reach out. I will always reach out and just say, hey, I had this idea, XYZ, do you think you could help? Or, hey, I know XYZ, I know this person, but I will always try and make those attempts, make those networking connections.
Yeah, you're right. Today I reached out to a guy named Luke Akins, who actually jumped out of a plane or helicopter and has no parachute. Yeah. And he didn't respond to me back. He did this big stunt jumping into this net. And I thought that was the coolest thing on earth. Me and Travis Pastrana from Nitro were talking about it, saying, oh, we're going to do it, because he already did something kind of like that where he didn't put on the air thing or the parachute. And so I reached out to him and finally got back, and now we're setting up a call. It's just, you got to keep at it. And just because someone says no, you can't get sad. Yeah, everyone knows this in sales. Sales is rejection. If you get used to being rejected, then all of a sudden it's kind of like you're used to ripping your muscles so that they can get stronger the next time. You can't bodybuild without tearing down the proteins to make way for the new proteins. So rejection is going to be part of the game, but that's just like being sore after training. That's what it takes. It's not a good training if you weren't sore anyway. But it shows that you can do it. You can reach out to lots of people. I reached out to when I was a kid, I used to listen to a lot of rap music, and I reached out to a guy called Crooked Eye, who's part of Slaughterhouse and works with Eminem and everything. And I reached out and sent him my first compilation and just said, hey, thanks, I used his music. And he said, hey, man, thanks. That's awesome. Mad respect, bro. Little stuff like that goes a long way. And then it shows you, these people are there. You just got to approach them and not be scared and show them that, you appreciate what they're doing. They'll respond, not all the time, but, more often than you might think.
It depends, right? Because sometimes when you're contacting people, you're actually not contacting them directly. Some people you are, some people you're not. But I would say just shoot every shot that you can, at least send the message. It costs you nothing. And the more you can get good at just being like, oh, this person is XYZ, I'm going to message him. Fine, just do it.
Well, that's the thing. Right now, I have a direct line to Gary Vee through one of the marketing people I've reached out to us about. They were trying to find influencers that would do some project with him like a year or so ago. He hasn't deleted that message. Mm-hmm. So I can still search it up. It says Sophie and Greg Gary times Gary Vee. So it's him, his influencer manager girl, and then me, and then obviously they've done that to a lot of other people. So every time I have a thing, I can just message that, and I know it pops up, and they always see it. They don't respond though, but they always see it. So if I ever have anything good and my resume gets even better to the level where we would take that, then that's where I already have an open door. So you don't want to close the doors either just because you think they're not going to work. It's better to keep them open. We have a whole sheet of on like a spreadsheet that literally has tons of contacts, and I write down what the status of that contact is, every single one, just so I know how to play the game if they ever do come back. And once every couple months we drip them, and we call it, remind them that we exist, send them an update, and you'd be surprised how many people get back and say, hey, that's kind of cool, never thought about that, hey, send me some more info. And it's that recycling pattern that I think you get it into, new stuff coming in, but recycle the old stuff even if you think it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, for sure. And those small touches, and anybody who's a marketing or, that type of networking individual will tell you those small touches can have huge results. And it's not always going to be the person that you know firsthand. It could be somebody you know third hand, fourth hand, or three of your buddies run into XYZ and they tell them about this thing that you're doing, and then boom, that's how you get on your leap pad or your rocket ship or however you want to call it.
Yeah, it's a repetition game, just like you said earlier. It's just do it, throw poop at the wall, something's gonna stick, and it's those who can throw more poop and better poop that win.
Well, you have to measure it, and you have to manage it, and you have to understand, okay, this poop went XYZ and had these results. I know that if I do this, I can get that result again. What if I make this adjustment?
Yeah.
And reflecting on what you're doing and learning from it.
Yeah, that's a good point. You have to be able to measure your results. A lot of people just kind of throw some stuff out there, doesn't get the results that they want, they move on, and then randomly try again later when the spark comes back, and they're feeling bad that day or whatever the case is. But if you actually want to be successful, it has to be structured every single day. You have to have a pattern. You have to think, well, I'm doing sales for these 2 hours in the morning. Then I'm doing a bit of research on this topic this day. I'm going to make notes on the research so I can refer back to it. Then I'm going to go and I'm going to look at my editing and I'm going to critique it. I'm going to send it. You have to have a pattern, and you got to do it. We've been training and doing these kind of things for 25 years now. That's the level that these kids want to get to. They want to get on the Titan. They want to get on America's Got Talent. They want to do Nitro Circus. Yeah, but it takes literally 20, 25 years to get to that level to be able to do that. And you got to be able to commit that. And you got to basically ask yourself, are you here for 25 years? Do you love what you're doing so much that even if it takes you 25 years to be successful, are you going to still be here waiting for that moment, or should you do something else?
Yeah, you always have to be reflecting. Reflecting and making new decisions. Yeah. Or making the same decision if your reflection says this is the path that I need to be on, this is the best route, this is the best pursuit of the time that I have for the thing that I want.
Yeah, well, you got to balance it out, because you can't just listen to everybody else. They're going to send you in a million different directions, but you got to fundamentally say, well, if nobody likes my service or product or editing skills or whatever it is that I choose to do, then at some point you got to listen to them and say, okay, I guess it's me, not them. Where a lot of people just automatically blame everyone else. So I'd rather always take a more skeptical look at myself first, double check my theories with our mentors and partners and stuff like that. And even the kids, we send them questions all the time about stuff we should do for the community. And then, make a decisions based on the aggregates of those kind of results. You got to balance out your personal beliefs with what everyone else believes too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, man. Okay, so you're MMA fighting. Okay, so if you were a gymnastics coach and you were going to get into maybe trying to put a bit of this mixed martial arts training, because your kids don't really want to condition, you're trying to find a unique way to kind of get them using their muscles, but without boring them half to death. Are there some simple, not too invasive drills or games that you can play that are more MMA style that a coach can use in the gym?
Yeah. Do you know what's funny is that as a kid or as a younger athlete, or even when I was probably all the way up into university, I hated conditioning. I loved the results of being an athlete. I loved the results of being athletic, but man, I didn't eat the greatest food sometimes, and I was really lazy, and I slacked off in training a lot of the times because I didn't view it as the benefit that it is. But if you understand that, if you take they call it the long-term athlete development model, right? If you implement some type of playing into conditioning, and you recognize that if I'm implementing mixed martial arts with my gymnastics athletes, they can play a game of ankle tag, right? And ankle tag is literally just what it sounds like. I'm trying to tag your ankle while you're trying to tag my ankle, and whoever tags it first wins, right? So that is what we use. We use that drill in wrestling because if I can get to your ankle, I can basically get a takedown on you most of the time. So it's a really nice drill, but it teaches eye-hand coordination. You get super tired. You're literally rolling all over the floor. You're going up, down, up, down, up, down. You're circling right. You're circling left. You're using that kinesthetic awareness, and you're creating the same skills. You're using the same characteristics and traits that you would in many different gymnastics avenues, or when it comes to building an aerobic base or building some type of cardio, mixed martial arts training is amazing at that. So when people ask me do I run, I don't go do steady state cardio, right? Because I get so much aerobic training from going and doing gymnastics or going and doing jujitsu or doing Muay Thai or doing kickboxing or doing boxing, that I have an aerobic base that I run a mile every single year just to prove a point that I can run a really fast mile. And I never run but I also can do jujitsu literally all day because I've built up that aerobic base, and then I've taken care of that training effect. So I know that my time is better spent doing other things or literally playing, right? If I'm trying to get better at gymnastics, my mixed martial arts training can help my gymnastics training. And if it's something I enjoy, I'm gonna do it effective use of my time.
Very true. Very true. That's it's very interesting. When I was a kid, we would cross train with the called Raw Wrestling. It was a gym down the street a little bit, and they'd bring in their wrestlers, and then they would teach us some wrestling moves, but we'd teach them some gymnastics. So we trained off quite nicely. And I think there's a good crossover. And I think by having coaches be able to work with different sports for conditioning, it can help take away some of that. So maybe one week it's going to be more focused, the conditioning is going to be more focused on MMA. But then in the next one, it might be more like triathlon stuff. You get to actually throw a discus. You got to actually think like, okay, I got to do a shot put or something like that with a heavy medicine ball. And you can almost make a theme to every week or every couple weeks, and that kind of keeps the muscles building, but really keeps it novel and unique rather than a 1 month long program that's always the same. That's your brain isn't even on then. So that's how I would look at it.
Yeah, the more engaged that you can keep an individual, and then the broader the base of athleticism that you can create, the higher you can go. Right. So if you look at the best athletes in the world, they all played multiple sports. Like this specialization is you play one sport all year round, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It wears you down, and you aren't building as many skills, and you're probably not getting as good as you can be. So for us, gymnastics was the base of everything that we did. But I also played basketball, baseball, football, soccer. I did tennis, table tennis, diving. So I played all of these sports, and getting good at one got me good at all of the others. And I think gymnastics athletes especially, because my parents ran a gymnastics gym. I saw how much gymnastics those kids were doing. And that's amazing. And you have to do that. You have to be diligent. But I think that doing other sports, doing other things, being engaged mentally and physically will help with your main sport, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm seeing the stats are showing that kids are participating less and less in these team sports because A, money, B, time, C, other options exist now that never really did. And we're seeing that the numbers of athletes really they're starting to kind of play everywhere a little bit and diversify rather than just focus on one sport as much. The few that do are the ones that mom and dad really, are pushing hard. The coach is pushing hard, the kids pushing hard, but that's a smaller and smaller number every year, to the point where kids are looking more for a global view and to be able to play basketball one day and then tennis the next day and then parkour the next day. And then, and this actually works nicely because we're talking to some stunt guys like Travis Wong, and, they're discussing how for them, it's actually better to be versatile and be good at all these different things, because you never know when the Rock's going to call you up, and all of a sudden you might be a gymnast, but all of a sudden you got to throw a basketball, or you got to do some rope climb thing in this unique sort of way. Well, it's going to be better the more areas you have to kind of pull from to get inspiration and to get motivation, and also coordination and all that sort of stuff. You're just going to have a better chance all around,
Yeah, and what's funny is like I've done like stunt opportunities where I was in a rage room, right, where I was just breaking stuff all day. On the Titan Games, I got to swing a sledgehammer, right? There's so many different skills from so many different sports that could apply in those scenarios, but having done them all and having done lots of sports allowed me to be extremely versatile. So if you're ready for any sport, any opportunity, then there's not that big freak out. You can just do whatever the thing is you need to do.
Yeah, I think the gymnastics coaches, at least the more traditional ones that are a little bit older and, more set in their ways, I think they can really benefit from that idea where it just bring in a new theme, a new type of sport. Just because it's a gymnastics gym doesn't mean you can only do gymnastics verified conditioning. You can't, yes, you can do front supports and reverse supports and crosses, but you can also then play tennis with a really heavy racket one day, and that's still going to work the pec muscles and all the other stuff. So you can really switch it up to keep your athletes engaged, which ultimately means that their brain's going to be digesting those improvements more anyway than just some static, 1RM, front support thing, and I think that's really where gymnastics should go in the future, is think of it more like an overarching builder for all sports. I think you'd be able to grab more athletes in if you market it that way, rather than come into the one path for 20 years that you can never get off of. Instead it's, hey, come in. If you want to be good at any sport, come do gymnastics here. And I think that would be a better sell, for the average person.
Every single athletic person I've ever talked to, when they find out that I did gymnastics my whole life, it has always said, I wish I did that as a kid. I've heard that so many times over and over and over and over again, because it makes you good and or better at so many different things.
Yeah, I agree. Is there any other drills or ideas from mixed martial arts that you could pass off onto a coach that they could apply?
Yeah, you know what? Mixed martial arts, you're doing basically all of the same things in gymnastics. You're probably good at most of those skills. It's kind of how you frame it, right? If I go down to my stomach and I come back up, in wrestling, it's a sprawl. In gymnastics, it's a stomach drop. In other sports, it's, something else, but you have to be able to go down and come back up. But we do those drills all the time. In CrossFit, it's an up down or a burpee, right? So it's how you frame that skill. Like if you think about wrestling, if you think about Muay Thai, if you think about like whatever it may be, the mixed martial arts drills, you can apply them as mixed martial arts drills, but you may be working a gymnastics skill at the exact same time, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I like the idea of framing it. And I think that's where a lot of coaches struggle a little bit, because framing is tough to know which way to frame it and all that. And the kids just want to hear something new, right? So if you can just frame it and say, hey, we're doing the burpees, instead of burpees, we're doing sprawls. There's a lot of kids, if you just renamed it a sprawl and made it funny when you basically presented it to the kids, then all of a sudden they'd be okay with it. They don't even think, it's a burpee, because you say the word burpee, all negative emotions come back from last time they had to do, like 100 burpees in a row, and they hated it. But you say, hey, we're going to do sprawls today, and you're going to sprawl, against somebody else as fast as you can. All of a sudden, it's already framed a little bit differently, and that might just do the trick, a simple renaming of it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, how you're presented with a thing makes a huge difference. And I like strength and conditioning now, but I hated it when I was a kid. But now when I'm presented with new things, it's in a challenging fashion or like a learning, growing fashion. So I oftentimes will present things to people like, hey, this thing is super cool or super hard. Like, you think you can do it? Like as a challenge. And when you do that, kids especially will be like, oh, I can do that. Whatever. If it's super hard, I can do it. And then they'll actually kill themselves. They'll train so hard or do it so difficult to try and show you that they can do it. And had you been like, you have to do this, they're not going to do it. It's how you present it psychologically and how it's framed makes a big difference.
Yeah. I agree. It's all about, it's selling at the end of the day. You're selling this idea because you're basically saying, well, if you do what I'm telling you, your life will be better in this way. Right. But at the end of the day, isn't that what every brand is doing? They are selling a product or a service, and education is a service, and you have to sell that service. So the way you frame it is, I would say, more than half the battle. I would say that the success we've gotten in the coaching we've done is a lot more. It's not the technical ability. Yes, I know the techniques and stuff like that, but it's really the way that we can, wear Hawaiian shirts and be happy and always smiling and relate to the kids in a cool sort of younger way, rather than the mom and dad sort of way. No offense to mom and dad, but as soon as something comes from mom and dad, every kid just automatically kind of pushes it down and just sort of ignores it. So I would say, don't position yourself as a coach. I think that actually is taking a step closer to mom and dad status. I would be positioning yourself as the cool uncle, if anything, the one that does let you do all the fun stuff and get away with certain things, and does let you have cake before dinner and stuff like that. And you'll see a lot more engagement, so that when the uncle says something, the kid is going to listen to it more than if mom and dad just keep parroting it out. And I think that's just basic psychology, even if it is not nice. that it has to be that way, but that's just how it is, you know?
I think you should always let people do what they want. And for me, I'm very hesitant to ever, and when you talk about education, you're talking to somebody. I have a double major, a master's degree, a law degree, and then in addition to that, I have something like 36 additional certifications. So I love learning, and I've paid handsomely for all of that learning. But I love it. I enjoy it. And the more diverse knowledge that you possess, the more effective you can be in almost everything that you do.
Yeah, I agree. Getting back to that diversity thing, I'm seeing a world where, all these theories are thrown out, and technically we don't actually know if any of these theories are right. We actually don't know if gravity is correct. We don't technically know any of this stuff. We are just basically observing the world and making some guesses, and the guesses we like, we throw them on a piece of paper, call it a theory, put some money behind it, call it certified, and then that's it. It's still just a theory at the very end of the day. And I think that's what's happening, is that these theories are losing at the end, because you can tear apart a theory, no problem. Anyone can take a theory and find a hole or something wrong with it. So what's happening now, that's forcing people to think about combining theories now. Instead of just picking one that you think works for you, it's kind of looking at diversely, what's the world actually made of, and I'll find gaps where I can fit myself in. And I think that's where diversity really does help, not just in sports, but in just life.
Yeah, scientist Richard Feynman is famous for saying that I know certain things to certain probabilities, but I don't know anything for certain. But you can definitely prove things wrong, right? So we don't know anything for certain. There's different probabilities, but we definitely know some things are wrong.
That's fine. And the other physicist, I can't remember his name. Wasn't Bohr. It was the other physicist guy that basically was named to create quantum mechanics. And even like 30 years later, he has a recording of him saying, basically, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. We just have all these theories, and but we don't really know what quantum physics is. We're just basically observing and writing it down as we go, but we don't really know what we're writing down. We just know that it changed, And I think some cultures, or some parents, or some coaches, or some just people, they put information on a pedestal as if the information itself is so valuable, where they forget the context matters. They forget all the other stuff, the experience of the person, the way they can apply it, and all that sort of stuff. It really means more than the actual theory itself. And I would like to get to a world where we use information, but we don't fight about information the way you see online, with all these intellectuals going back and forth over basically made up theories at the end of the day. These are just opinions, guys. You don't really know. And it's sparked a lot of controversy, in the intellectual world. And I would just like to see one where it's like, that's cool. Show me how it works for you. And I think that's what the kids are saying. Show me how it works for you, mom and dad. You tell me all these rules. Show me how it works for you. Oh, wait, you just work a 9-to-5 job and you yell at mom because you hate your life all the time and you just don't tell anyone else? Well, sorry, I catch that, so I'm not listening to you. So you got to prove your theory could work. Now, how does it work? And show me how to do it.
In our nutrition coaching, and in a lot of the coaching we do, we talk about things, we ask a lot of questions, and then when we find things out, we ask the question, how's that working for you? And most of the time, the answer is not very good.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you can find the best nutritional plan or whatever, but if you got a million other factors that really stop you from applying it, then it doesn't really matter how good that theory was, we'll call it.
Yeah. I've been eating low carb for 5 years, and I never ever eat a muffin in my whole entire life. Well, how's that working for you? Pretty terrible. I'm miserable. My cortisol's through the roof, and I do not weigh what I want to weigh, and I do not do what I want to do. Oh, okay. Maybe let's try something else.
Yeah, exactly. And that's I think the world we're entering is you got to now put your theories to the test. Before, it was more like just present a theory that's good enough. You kind of get put into the old boys club of, a university professor or researcher or, just a steady job, and you kind of make it in and you sit, but nowadays there is no job stability, not as much, at least. There obviously is, but there's a lot less with this whole social media stuff. Everyone's becoming a business owner now. So now it's you better get going, and people are realizing that you got to make your own theory at the end of the day based on what information you've accumulated.
Yeah, but you are talking to a classically trained lawyer, so I do look to authority and citations and precedent when somebody says something, right? So I view myself as both radically open-minded, but I'm always willing to debate topics with that radical open mind, and also coming into it with a growth mindset. When I'm debating somebody, I'm trying to learn from that individual. I'm not necessarily trying to prove my point. Whereas in most debates, that's all you're getting is someone who's entrenching themselves in their viewpoint. But you don't grow, you don't learn anything, you don't become a better person, you don't become a more effective or efficient or successful person when you just entrench into without having a level of empathy.
Yeah. And I obviously can say that I'm definitely guilty of that sometimes. And but it's tough not all to keep an open mind all the time when someone else is basically always telling you you're wrong. So this is where you need a happy balance. And every day we wake up with a new research, a new podcast, a new lecture of some kind. And what we'll always do is we'll have a quick little debate about it. And I will automatically have a side that I think makes sense. And then the rule of the debate is that I have to pick the other side automatically. The good thing about it is it keeps you open. The bad thing is that you always come out just not trusting anything, because if you think about something long enough, you can always find a reason not to believe it. And
in law school, you're assigned cases, and then you have to argue one side of the case or the right. You either have to bring the plaintiff's side or the defendant's side. But here's the thing: when you're doing those exercises, when you're doing moot court, mock trial, debate, you have to flip sides. So you recognize that both sides almost always have some points, and somewhere in the middle is usually where you wind up. So you just have to keep an open mind whenever you're having any type of debate.
That's interesting. How did you get into law exactly? Was this something that you wanted to do ever since you were a kid, or you just accidentally fell into the cage of the law, like in the fighting?
Yeah, no, what's funny is my father would always say, if you want to be successful, become a doctor or a lawyer. So I thought being a doctor would be more school. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to be a lawyer. So from the time I was probably like 14 or 15, I was like, I'm going to be a lawyer. And then I pursued that path pretty ambitiously. And, and then I was a lawyer. And then once I was a lawyer in a big law firm, I kind of looked around and I was like, man, I don't know if this is my personal definition of success. So it was at that point that I actually started pursuing mixed martial arts career, that I started pursuing all of these television opportunities, that I started pursuing health and wellness at the same time. So for me, I've been blessed in that I achieved that goal early enough that I could figure it out and have some perspective and say, like, this is great and I love being an attorney and I never want to like poo-poo on my profession and my colleagues. But sometimes being a lawyer isn't that great in comparison to, fist bumping and talking smack with The Rock, or, doing health and wellness and health and fitness with your brothers. For me, I'm blessed in that I've created a life where I can do all those things now, but it was definitely a learning and a cultivating experience.
That is very, very cool. And I think we'll save the legal stuff for a whole nother one. We can get into a whole bunch of legal stuff, and because I know gymnastics obviously has injuries and insurance and stuff like that. I'm sure you got some stuff to say about that.
I do insurance defense work, so I'm well versed in, and I've seen it from both sides. I've seen it from the perspective of my parents owned a gymnastics gym. My father sold trampolines their whole life, and I've seen it from the legal perspective of where you have to take into account risk and liability from an insurance perspective in our contemporary society. So there's merits on both sides, and I tend to be very I'm okay with risk. I like a lot of risk. But insurance defense firms or insurance defense work, you do not like a lot of risk at all.
Yeah, that's definitely got to what do they say, stick in their craw, when you're dealing with those guys, because you're the lawyer, the younger lawyer coming in, and you're a risky guy that fights people on television and stuff, but yet now all of a sudden you're going to put on a suit and tie and all this and defend some people with defensives and stuff like this, and I think it's quite funny just kind of thinking about the dichotomy there.
Yeah, I think all people have layers and different facets to them, and for me, I've been blessed that I've been able to pursue at very high levels a lot of those different facets. Right, I won my first national championship as a kid when I was like 5 or 6. I was young, really young kid, right? So I got to pursue that quite early, and then now I get to pursue an intellectual pursuit as an attorney. I get to pursue, you know, kind of like a muscle nerd aspect when I talk about health and wellness or nutrition. And I think that most people have a lot of range. There's a book called Range by David Epstein, where it talks about the future is likely people who have both breadth and depth, right? Who can talk about some subjects at an extremely deep level, but are well versed in a number of different subjects that tie into each other.
I agree. And you know how many basically sponsorships we have gotten simply because of the fact that we basically were able just to talk to the brands before we even realized they were brands, just about stuff, like quantum physics and gravity loop theory and all this sort of stuff. And just being able to actually have that and mean it, not just like you read a book and then you quickly regurgitate it in front of everyone you see, but you actually have a joy for it, a passion for it. The sponsors, the brands, the people you work with can see that, and they know, okay, you're a curious kind of person. Even if what you're saying is not always true, which it never is, but as long as they can see that you have that sort of passion, they tend to want to work with you more. The brands that we deal with, they want to get emotionally attached. They want to know our story. They want to know why we're doing it, what we're doing to help these kids and all that sort of stuff. It's not just numbers. It's a lot more of, I want to get to know that you're a type of person that I can work with, like what you said with your friend earlier, that had, he worked real hard and all that sort of stuff, but it was, you get to know them, and then you can, pull out the resumes and stuff like that. So I don't think you can skip that.
Yeah, most of the brands that sponsor me for fighting do so because of the level of knowledge that I have, not necessarily because I'm a fantastic athlete or an undefeated professional athlete. It goes back to, I have a platform, sure, but that's the lowest bar to entry, right? Once you get that, once you have a platform, right, what can you do with that platform, and how well versed are you in what subjects can you actually present as an ambassador for that company and actually speak on a topic? So public speaking is something I've done my whole life because my parents owned a gym, so I had to talk in front of the athletes, or I had to do different things. And then as an attorney, you have to speak in front of people all the time. So it's just another skill to develop.
Yeah, definitely. You gotta get in front of people. You gotta develop that comfortable to just kind of be out there and be who you are. You're obviously always going to have your person suit on and, playing the nice guy and all that sort of stuff when the, politically correct things are needed to be said. But at the end of the day, they got to feel that they're actually getting you. And if that's how you're getting your sponsorship, because they get to know who you are, and you have obviously even the law, it's a really good fighting name, by the way. And, you can kind of use that and it ties all together. Then all of a sudden the brands want to be associated. We were talking to a snowboarder and he said, you got to have a platform, like you said, but then you got to be recognized even in the inner circles where there's not many high level fighters out there, but they have to respect you as well. You can't just be a guy that has 2 million followers but sucks at fighting. You got to have a bit of both, and that's very interesting.
If you're smart enough and that's your thing, recognize that you can, via your marketing, via your platform, you can create those, but your brand is not necessarily whatever you're putting out there. Your brand is the marketing. Your brand is the ability to get eyeballs on a product. So it's different, and there's different aspects to this, and it's a little bit more nuanced than, just get the followers or just get the achievements, or, you have to do a little bit of everything. And then you have to recognize that there's a lot of hard work that probably goes into it and a lot of luck.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of luck, but I like to focus on the hard work, because luck, I find, goes both ways. You're as lucky as you are unlucky. So that kind of negates, and the only thing left standing is how much hard work you've put in the middle of all that, and that's how I kind of see it. So for me, it's just saying, get out there, work hard, and show your brands that you want to work hard. They want to see a work machine. They don't want to hear, that you have 1 million followers, but you're a lazy prick. that never does anything, never answers the phone or anything. They want to see someone that only has maybe 50,000 followers, but is there every day proposing something new, that wants to try something, because eventually something will click and you can all network together.
Yeah, dude, that is especially true in the television industry. If you show up on time and you work hard and you're a good or nice or friendly or fun person to be around or to work with, man, you will get so many more opportunities that way.
Yeah. It's all about personality at the end of the day, and it's all the platform is really secondary, because the other brands that you work with can help you build your own platform. They just need someone that's worth helping to build.
Yep.
100%.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed and learned a few things. There's a big world out there worth exploring, and I'm happy to be able to bring these great experiences right to you through this podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast and learned something, please share and take a screen grab of our funky cartoons and hashtag GRT certified for a chance to win a shout out to our community. Also, please leave us a review to be part of helping this information get out into the industry. It's much appreciated. Along with these podcasts, we have a large online content hub that we call the GRT Network, with many other interviews and full tutorials and written content discussing everything about acrobatics. We will be constantly growing this archive of videos like a cross between Netflix and Wikipedia for anyone in the acrobatic industry. We also have a complete online educational program for athletes of all levels that provides a do-it-yourself pathway to success for any acrobat. Check out our constantly growing library of playlists that will teach you anything from tightening up your social media, to how to get around fear, to even learning all the biology that underlies all your acrobatic skills. We work very hard with our team around the world to provide this exclusive content for you, and appreciate any donations made to the FTA to help keep these episodes coming at you. And if you want all the content, become a GRT Network full member to get exclusive content before everyone else and access to special discounts and giveaways through our amazing global partners. Thanks guys, see you next episode.